Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this program that commemorates the cultural festival of Tibet and discusses India and Tibet, the current bonds. Surely the current bonds build on an ancient tradition. And we're just sort of at the postscript, as it were, of the Thank You India meeting in Dharamsala. And I cannot help but feel passionately that this should really have been a Thank You Tibet and Thank You Tibetan initiative, because and at the conference people acknowledged and celebrated the Tibetans as honored guests, but I think they're much more than honored guests. I think they are extended family to us in India, and the depth of that relationship not only goes back centuries and is not limited to Buddhism alone. And very often we haven't reflected perhaps deeply enough on the depth of not just the relationship, but the manner in which Buddhism was preserved in Tibet. It wasn't merely a question, as has happened in many cases, where religious traditions and philosophies travel on the sort of the backs and in the sacks of travelers and business people to different parts of the world. But in the case of the transmission, in a sense, of Buddhism to Tibet, this was really done both with a great sense of mutuality and respect, where people traveled from Tibet to India to learn about Buddhism and traveled from India to Tibet, carrying not just the scriptures and the texts, but in fact, we'll take a pause.
Yeah, please.
I'm very sorry, please forgive me.
I shall now speak with far greater trepidation, speaking in front of Kapilaji with her deep erudition and her great passion for the agendas of Tibet and her great affection and love for Tibetans and Tibet. So I shall now watch my words. Having said that, I was talking about the nature of the transmission and the manner in which Indian Buddhism, or Buddhism from India, traveled to Tibet and was preserved there. It was not just the scriptures that were carried, but the unarticulated experience of practitioners of Buddhism in India who went to Tibet and shared their understanding and knowledge. And the receptivity was so enormous that when those non-conceptual experiences were transmitted and shared as from teacher to student and teacher to fellow teacher, the Tibetan language expanded its vocabulary to accommodate the many nuances of the lived and felt experience of Buddhism. So it was with that subtlety and depth and nuance that Buddhism was preserved in Tibet, that traveled from India. And as the Buddha, in a sense, mandated himself, Buddhism continued to evolve, building on those very nuances and ideas, and has now returned through His Holiness and the Tibetans to India. And very often His Holiness has described India as the Guru and the Tibetans as the Chela. And it's now almost become a cliche for us to say that really it is the Tibetan who have now become our gurus, and we are really the chelas, not just as far as Buddhism is concerned, but in terms of, and not merely His Holiness the Dalai Lama alone, but the entire Tibetan community, or many in the Tibetan community, the monastics, people like Samdang Rinpoche, who have revived post-Gandhi a discourse on Gandhi and non-violence. Something His Holiness embodies, but I think we've had a very rich articulation by Samdang Rinpoche, who will be our first speaker. Samdang Rinpoche is celebrated and respected for who he is as a human being, as a monk of great wisdom and sagacity, and of course his enormous contribution to the agendas and the preservation of the heritage of the Tibetans, to the ideals of nonviolence, and a very significant part of his life and work has been looking at education, the techniques and practices of education that nurtures wisdom and human values, and is perhaps second only to His Holiness, and who today His Holiness considers him a close associate, an emissary. He has said so in public, and sort of virtually his right hand. Rinpoche arrived in India in 1959 to join His Holiness in exile, and over the decades he has held many distinguished positions. In 1971, he became principal of the Central Institute for Higher Tibetan Studies at Varanasi, and later its director. And his many important responsibilities included president of the Association of Indian Universities, an academic group of more than 250 vice-chancellors of Indian universities, chancellor of Sachi University of Buddhist Indic Studies, and chairman of numerous trusts and foundations. He is regarded as one of the leading scholars of Buddhism and is an authority, as I mentioned, on the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. And you will hear him speak. He's fluent in Hindi and speaks impeccable Hindi, Sanskrit, and of course Tibetan. That puts us, from Hindi, with Hindi, our mother tongue, to shame really the fluency and nuance with which he is able to communicate in Hindi. He's also spent many years engaging with J. Krishnamurti on developing approaches to education. He was appointed by His Holiness as a member of the Assembly of the Tibetan People's Deputies, and later unanimously elected as its chairman. He served twice as a speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in exile, and contributed substantially and played the lead role, perhaps, in drafting the new constitution of the Tibetan government in exile. He was elected Kalon Tripa, Prime Minister of the Tibetan government in exile, with 85% of the vote, sort of an overwhelming, more than two-thirds majority. He has been a staunch supporter of the middle way approach of His Holiness, and he has very eloquently said, "The cause of Tibet is just a cause and not a power struggle. It is neither a political struggle nor a battle against the system. It is the struggle between truth and falsehood." I'm delighted, honored, and blessed to welcome Samdang Rinpoche to share his insights and his wisdom.
Vedute kalpuna jalam gambhirodharmurtahe naman samanta badrya samanta trishe. Shraddhe Kapila ji, Mahamahim, Dr. Losan Singh ji, Shri राजीव मल्होत्रा जी, उपस्थित हमारा अग्रज वृंद, देवियों और सज्जनों, ऐसे विशिष्ट व्यक्तियों की समक्ष कुछ बात कहना मेरे लिए अत्यंत कठिन कार्य हैं। विशेषकर कपिला जी की उपस्थिति में हम सब का बोली बंद हो जाते हैं। इनके साथ समय कुछ कहना मेरे लिए अभी भी बहुत संकोच की बात है। जिस समय मुझे ये बुलाव मिले थे तो मैंने उनसे ये कहा था कि अगर भारतीय भाषा में बोलने की अनुमति हो तो मैं आ सकता हूँ, यदि फिरंगी भाषा में बोलना अनिवार्य हो तो मैं आपसे क्षमा चाहूँगा। तो उन्होंने कहा कि ठीक है, आप जिसमें चाहें बोल सकते हैं। तो इसलिए मैं भारतीय भाषा में, यह मेरा मातृभाषा तो नहीं है, चाहे अंग्रेज़ हो चाहे हिंदी हो, दोनों में त्रुटिपूर्ण बोलता हूँ, लेकिन हमको थोड़ा अपने तिब्बती भाषा की जो माता है वो भारतीय भाषा है। भारतीय भाषा और तिब्बती भाषा वर्णमाला की दृष्टि से कोई पृथक नहीं है, व्याकरण की दृष्टि से भी कोई पृथक नहीं है। तो इसलिए थोड़ा सुविधा रहता है, तो उस भाषा में आपके समय कुछ कहने की साहस कर रहा हूँ। विषय दिया गया है इंडिया एंड तिब्बत, एंशिएंट टाइज, करंट बॉन्ड्स। अब इसका क्या अर्थ है मुझे साफ साफ बोध नहीं है। एंशिएंट टाइज, करंट बॉन्ड्स। अब इंडिया, ऐसा तो भारत दैट इज इंडिया हो सकता था, लेकिन हम लोग कहते हैं इंडिया दैट इज भारत। तो उस देश में जो जिसके संविधान कहते हो कि इंडिया दैट इज भारत, तो उस इंडिया की बात जरूर करते होंगे। तिब्बत बोट एक ही हैं। तो टाई और बॉन्ड की जो बात हैं, ये अपने भाषा में बंधन और जकरा जैसा होता है, ऐसा तो इस दो देश के बीच में कुछ हो ऐसा मुझे लगता नहीं है। संबंध में भी शब्द बंध तो आते हैं, लेकिन उसका उपसर्ग सम के साथ वो एक अच्छे अर्थ में परिणित होता है। तो उस विषय में मैं कुछ कहने की प्रयास करूँगा। आजकल जो कुछ संबंधों की बात सोचते हैं, तो सब लोगों की मन में एक पूर्वाग्रह जैसा रहते हैं कि संबंध दो पृथक वस्तुओं के बीच में होता है। एक ही वस्तु को संबंध की बात नहीं किया जा सकता है। एक तो ये बात है, और दूसरा, यदि यह समाज की या राष्ट्र की संबंध की हम बात करते हैं, तो वो दो राष्ट्र के बीच में राजनीतिक, आर्थिक, सामाजिक, व्यापारी या सुरक्षा या भौगोलिक, इन सब की पृष्ठभूमि में संबंध की बात को खोजते हैं। उसके अतिरिक्त एक संबंध जिसका पृष्ठभूमि विद्या और आध्यात्मिक के क्षेत्र में होता हो, वह आज के लोगों की ज़हन में नहीं आते हैं। जो दो राष्ट्रों के संबंध जो बात करते हैं, तो वहाँ एक दो प्रजात की या दो भौगोलिक पृथक देश के बीच के संबंध की बात करते हैं। अगर ये बात तिब्बत और भारत के बीच में जोड़ा जाए तो ये लगभग कुछ संबंध नहीं है, ऐसा कहा जा सकता है। इस प्रकार का संबंध तो एक समकक्ष राष्ट्रों के बीच में हो सकता है। तिब्बत और भारत कभी समकक्ष में रहा नहीं। मैं इसको बहुत संक्षेप में कह सकता हूँ। प्राचीन तिब्बत और भारत गुरु शिष्य के रूप में थे। जब से आचार्य शांतराचित, आचार्य कमलशील, गुरु पैदमा संभव, जिन्होंने तिब्बत में जाकर के बौद्ध धर्म दर्शन संस्कृति की स्थापना किया था, तब से लेकर के संपूर्ण तिब्बत इन गुरुजनों के शिष्य हो गए। तो गुरु शिष्य के बीच में समता नहीं होता है, केवल श्रद्धा की और विश्वास के संबंध रहते हैं। गुरु की ओर से करुणा की और आशीष के भाव रहते हैं। तो इस दृष्टि से हम कभी समकक्ष में नहीं रहा। वर्तमान की आप बाउंड्स की बात कर रहे हैं। वर्तमान के बाउंड में हम शरणार्थी हैं। आज की हिसाब से देखा जाए तो आप शरण हैं, भारतीय शरण हैं और हम शरणार्थी हैं। तो शरण और शरणार्थी के बीच में भी समकक्ष बात नहीं आते हैं। एक शरणदाता है, एक शरणार्थी है, उसमें भी संबंध वही हैं, आध्यात्मिक या विद्या की या मानवता की, मानव सभ्यता की, ये बात आते हैं। तो इसलिए मैं प्राचीन तिब्बत और भारत के संबंध दलाई लामा जी, परम पूज्य दलाई लामा जी बार बार दोहराते हैं कि हम गुरु शिष्य के संबंध के रूप में जुड़े हुए हैं और वर्तमान परिस्थिति में शरण और शरणार्थी के रूप में जुड़े हुए हैं। इसका एक सही अर्थ मोरारजी भाई ने परम पूज्य जी को एक पत्र लिखा था। मोरारजी भाई जब प्रधानमंत्री बने थे तो परम पूज्य जी ने एक उनको बधाई के पत्र लिखे थे। तो उनके उत्तर में मोरारजी भाई लिखते हैं, तिब्बत और भारत एक वृक्ष की दो शाखाएं हैं। एक वृक्ष की दो शाखाएं हैं, इसका अर्थ ये है कि दोनों का मूल एक ही है। मूल एक ही हैं, जो परिलक्षित शाखाएं हैं अनेक हो सकता है, तो ये दो शाखाएं हैं। तो एक मूल में बंधे हुए जितना भी शाखाएं हो, वो आधार वही मूल रहेगा। अगर मूल सूख जाएगा तो शाखा कभी जीवित रहेंगी नहीं। शाखा सूख जाए तभी मूल सुरक्षित रह सकते हैं। तो ये उपमा मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा, तो मैं बार बार इसको दोहराता हूँ। गुरु शिष्य के जो संबंध मैंने बताया वो ऐसा मौखिक संबंध नहीं थे। गुरु की आज्ञा को कार्यान्वित करने के लिए 250 वर्ष तक तिब्बती अनुवादकों ने संपूर्ण भारतीय प्राचीन भारतीय वाङ्मय को अपने भाषा में अनुवादित करने की कार्य किया। जब आचार्य चंद्रश के जीवन का से ही प्रारंभ हो गए थे और वह 12वीं शताब्दी तक अविच्छिन्न निरंतरता से उस कार्य को चलता रहा। आज विश्व के इतिहास में ऐसा कोई वाङ्मय नहीं है इतना विपुल मात्रा में और इतना सटीक ढंग से एक भाषा से दूसरा भाषा में अनुवाद हुआ हो। कंजूर बुद्ध वचन, जिसका तिब्बत में 108 पोथियों में है, जिसमें कुल मिलाकर के 1108 विभिन्न तंत्र, सूत्र, धारणी आदि बुद्ध वचनों का अनुवाद हैं। और तेंजुर जो शास्त्रों की बुद्ध वचनों पर लिखे गए शास्त्रों और अन्य शास्त्रों, अन्य प्राचीन भारतीय ग्रंथों की अनुवाद तेंजुर में संग्रहित हैं, वह करीब 4600 कुछ हैं। वह 220 पोथियों में संग्रहित हैं। तो ये दोनों को मिलाकर के भारतीय वाङ्मय के 5000 से अधिक शीर्षक संपूर्ण रूप से तिब्बत भाषा में अनुवादित हुआ है। वो आज भी शास्त्र सुरक्षित हैं, उसकी टीका टिप्पणियाँ सुरक्षित हैं, तिब्बत में लिखा गया है हजारों की संख्या में, और मौखिक परंपरा भी अधिकांशतः अभी जीवित हैं, जो भारत को फिर से सौंपने की और प्रस्तुत करने की कार्य परमपावन जी ने उठाया है। और वो कभी कभी विनोद में कहते भी हैं कि हम शिष्य रहे हैं, लेकिन एक विश्वसनीय शिष्य रहा है। तो इसलिए जो कुछ हम ले गए थे उसको जस के तस अपने मूल मालिक को पुनः हस्तांतर करने के लिए हम प्रस्तुत हैं। पिछले कई वर्षों से परमपावन जी का एक विशेष अभिलाषा है और प्रयास भी हैं कि भारतवर्ष में प्राचीन भारतीय ज्ञान, विज्ञान और विद्या पुनर्जीवित किया जाए। जो कुछ तिब्बत में संरक्षित किया है वो आपके सामने पुनः प्रस्तुत करें। अगर ये कर सकें तो ये भविष्य का एक संबंध की परिकल्पना जो हम कर सकते हैं वो उस दिशा में करना चाहिए। उसके लिए तिब्बती विद्याधर लोग प्रस्तुत हैं। भारतीय ज्ञानवान और प्रतिभाशाली विद्यार्थियों की आवश्यकता दिखाई देते हैं और वो किसी न किसी समय में पूर्ति होंगी। तो इसलिए हमारा भविष्य की जो संबंध है वो भी कोई राजनीति से, अर्थनीति से, व्यापार से या सामाजिक कोई व्यवस्था से बंधा हुआ नहीं है, बंधित नहीं है। ये एक सेज रूप की और स्वभावतः एक संबंध बने हुए हैं। ये चिरकाल तक रहेगा, इसमें कोई बाधा आएगा मुझे लगता नहीं है। राजनीतिक उथल पुथल होता रहता है और राजनीतिक सोच और राजनीतिक व्यवहार भी समय समय पर बदल सकते हैं, लेकिन जो विद्या और आध्यात्मिक के पृष्ठभूमि में जो संबंध बनते हैं वह एक बार बनते हैं फिर टूटता नहीं है, वो स्थायी संबंध हैं और हमारा संबंध भी स्थायी रूप में रहेंगे, ऐसा मैं सोचता हूँ। प्राचीन भारतीय विद्या की और शास्त्रों की बात जब करता हूँ तो ये 5 महाविद्याओं की समग्र रूप में बात करता हूँ। ये केवल बौद्ध विद्याओं की बात मैं नहीं करता हूँ। षष्ठ दर्शन सम्मिलित जितना भी 11वें शताब्दी की पहले जो विभिन्न बौद्ध और बौद्ध इतर भारतीय दर्शन भारतवर्ष में विकसित हुए थे, उन सब का शास्त्रीय वचन बौद्ध वाङ्मय में सन्निहित हैं, संरक्षित हैं। इसलिए बौद्ध इतर धर्म दर्शन की विषय में भी बौद्ध वाङ्मय से बहुत कुछ योगदान हो सकता है, ऐसा मैं सोचता हूँ। सोचता क्या, परिलक्षित हैं, प्रत्यक्ष हैं, ये सब भविष्य में होता रहेगा। भारत के प्रति संपूर्ण तिब्बत जनता की हृदय में एक आर्यावर्त के रूप में देखते हैं। आर्यावर्त कोई जात विशेष की देश को नहीं समझते हैं। आर्या माने जो पृथक भूमि से ऊपर उठे हुए हैं, सत्य की साक्षात्कार करने वाले लोग हैं, उसको आर्य बोलते हैं। उस प्रकार के आर्य लोगों की, चाहे वो बौद्ध आर्य हो या बौद्ध इतर आर्य हो, उन सब की आर्य लोगों की ये देश हैं जो पूजनीय हैं और जिसकी धरती पर हम लोग अपना जीवन व्यतीत कर पाए, वो अपने को सौभाग्यपूर्ण समझते हैं। जब हम लोग अपने स्वाधीन देश में था, तभी एक बार भारत में, वह भी भगवान बुद्ध के 4 या 8 विशेष स्थानों पर आकर के दर्शन कर लें तो जीवन सफल माना जाता है। तो आज हम लगभग हर वर्ष इन स्थानों पर जाने के, रहने के, अध्ययन करने के, भावना करने के अवसर मिल रहा है। ये हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी बात है। इन सब की पृष्ठभूमि को देखते हुए और इस सारे संबंध में राजनीति कहीं पर भी नहीं है, अर्थनीति भी कहीं पर भी नहीं है। अब हम प्राचीन भारतीय विद्या को जो हमने संजो कर रखे थे तिब्बतियों ने, उनको दोबारा इस देश में स्थापित कर सकें, तो ये केवल तिब्बत और भारत की हित में नहीं होंगे, समस्त जगत के हित में होंगे। संपूर्ण जगत आज एक अनेक चुनौतियों से भरे हुए समय से गुजर रहे हैं, जो हिंसा की, पर्यावरण की, प्रदूषण की, गरीब अमीर की खाई की और राजनीतिक के दबंग की, अर्थ की विषमता की, हिंसा की, युद्ध की, आतंकवाद की, बहुत चीज़ आप लोग गिनते हैं। ये सब समस्या अपना आप समाप्त होने वाला नहीं है। ये सारा चुनौती जिस प्रकार से अभी हिंसा को प्रतिहिंसा से रोकने की जो चेष्टा कर रहे हैं, यह असंभव कार्य जैसा है, अस्वाभाविक कार्य जैसा है। आग को बुझाने के लिए और आग डाल दिया जाए या ईंधन डाल दिया जाए, उससे कुछ होने वाला नहीं है। प्राचीन भारतीय विद्या की पुनरुत्थान से संपूर्ण जगत को एक नई दिशा दे सकेंगे। ये नई दिशा देने की दायित्व भारतीय वासियों को हैं, ऐसा मैं निश्चित रूप से कह सकता हूँ। जगत गुरु की उपाधि ऐसा ही हल्के फुल्के ढंग से या अनोद विनोद में दिया हुआ नहीं है, इसके पीछे बहुत गहरा अर्थ है। मेरे वक्तव्य को समाप्त करने से पहले मैं यही कहना चाहूँगा कि संपूर्ण विश्व की जितना भी समस्याएं या चुनौतियां आज हम दिखाई दे रही हैं, ये मूल रूप से मनुष्य की अस्मिता की समस्या है। सब लोग अपने अपना अस्मिता खो रहे हैं और एक नए अस्मिता का खोज हैं, लेकिन मिल नहीं रहे हैं। या दूसरा शब्द में कहा जाए, यह परंपरा और आधुनिक, कृत्रिम परंपरा, कृत्रिम आधुनिक, समय की परंपरा, समय का आधुनिक, इस बीच की संघर्ष हैं, टकराव हैं। इस टकराव को बचाने का एकमात्र उपाय यही है कि समय की परंपरा को पहचानें और जिससे अपने अस्मिता को स्थापित करें और जिससे संपूर्ण मानव एक सहिष्णुता की और एक समन्वय की और एक सहयोग की वातावरण में अस्तित्व को और करुणा और मैत्री की भावना के साथ से अस्तित्व पुनः स्थापित कर सकें। ये केवल भारतवर्ष को कर सकते हैं। 12 मिनट के लिए सीमा बांधा था, उसमें से मेरे ख्याल से 1 मिनट ऊपर हो गया है, जिसके लिए मैं क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ। जय जगत।
Thank you, Rinpoche. As ever, you continue to inspire and illumine us with your wisdom and challenge us with the use of Hindi, which always makes me certainly feel extremely inadequate. I think that was how do I put this? Such a moving and powerful articulation of the deep, enduring, many-faceted and layered bonds between not just the Tibetan and Indian nation, not just between Buddhism and the interreligious conversation between Buddhism in India and Buddhism in Tibet, but I think between two civilizations who are intertwined from the ancient passages and moments of history. And I think that and I speak in contemporary discourse, and the success story of the Tibetans in exile has been unique, perhaps in human history, where they have managed to preserve their identity, they've managed to preserve their culture, and remain overwhelmingly welcomed by their hosts. And this surely has something to do with that civilizational linkage and the shared heritage of the most sophisticated mind training techniques in human history, which are experiencing a huge revival and a value system that His Holiness talks about incessantly today, secular ethics, secular values, often rephrased to make it more acceptable in certain communities and societies as universal values. And it is that shared commitment to values in everyday discourse and conversation that is perhaps the deepest bond. And I think it is also that in the manner in which His Holiness, while in exile in India, has expanded the vocabulary of spiritual aspiration. He has re-articulated India's commitment to inclusiveness, and where in the world, or in which religious or spiritual tradition, would you find a preeminent teacher willing to embrace other traditions and faiths in the manner that he has done? So here's a preeminent spiritual master who doesn't hesitate to go to a mosque and perform the namaz, to go to a gurdwara, to go to a church and sing a Christian hymn. So he has so deeply embodied the aspirations of our civilization, which in so many ways we have lost. And it is not just, of course, His Holiness who provides this, it is such an overwhelming, inclusive, warm, powerful presence. But I think that substantial credit needs to go from the civilization and the Tibetan people who have embodied and practiced and been inspired by this great master. I'm deeply honored and privileged to invite Dr. Madhuri Santanam Sondhi to speak. She is the chairperson of the Professor M.L. Sondhi Trust and director of the M.L. Sondhi Institute for Asia-Pacific Affairs. She's been editor of Shakti and a columnist for Asian Age and has written extensively. She was founder member of Tibet Swaraj Committee in Delhi, whose activities went far beyond the capital. She has been very active in support groups and initiatives. in support of the agendas of Tibet, Tibetan freedom, at sessions on Tibet of the Permanent People's Tribunal in Strasbourg. She's an advisor to the Tibetan Center of Advanced Studies in Dharamsala. And I have to confess that I was a very, very young man when her husband, Professor M.L. Sondhi, and Madhuriji were partners in raising and keeping afloat and waving the flag for Tibet. Professor Sondhi is a professor at JNU, as a parliamentarian, as an activist on the street and in the halls of academia. And he was such a powerful presence that in my consciousness, when I look back into the 50s and 60s, when I was, barely in my teens, that it was Professor Sondhi's presence that seemed to dominate. But it was not much later that I discovered that there was, in this case, far beyond the cliches, a woman behind, that passion and the energy in support of the many causes that he, publicly represented and embodied at that time. Both Madhuriji and Professor Sondhi were very close friends of His Holiness. Professor Sondhi was the Indian nominator for His Holiness, the Nobel Peace Prize, and both Professor Sondhi and Madhuriji accompanied His Holiness, and I, as a sort of little, a very young man, also had the great privilege of being with His Holiness at the Peace Prize ceremony, but they were on the high table as people who had made that possible. Her many books include The Making of Peace, A Logical and Societal Framework, Ecology, Culture and Philosophy, Modernity, Morality and the Mahatma. I could go on. A woman of many parts, Madhuriji, may I invite you to say a few words? Well, more than a few words. I wasn't aware of a 12-minute time limit, and Samdang Rinpoche is very punctilious about these things, but I think we could give you a little more time. Yes, please.
Thank you, Rajivji, for that very overwhelming introduction. And I'm afraid you might have raised a lot of expectations which are now going to be dashed, but it doesn't matter. I'm very happy and very honored to join with you in this Thank You India Committee, which commemorates 60 years of the presence of our Tibetan guests in India. And I extend warm greetings to my fellow panelists, to Professor Samdang Rinpoche, who has given this very erudite talk, and as Rajivji says, in a slightly difficult language for us Indians today who don't speak such chaste Hindi and chaste Sanskrit. And also Dr. Vatsayan, Kapila Vatsayanji, who is a great doyen of many things, including Tibetan learning, and one of the earliest in 1956 to greet His Holiness on his first visit to India. And of course, Dr. Lobsang Sangye, president of the CTA, whom I incidentally have always also known as a student, right? For a long time. Anyway, I think Venerable Rinpoche has said a lot about the ancient ties between Tibet and India, and which the Tibetans like to describe as the Guru-Shishya relationship. So I won't talk too much about the past. In modern times, after historical exigencies necessitated a long period of disruption in those journeys of spiritual and intellectual exploration that used to take place between Tibet and India, a direct relationship was once again established when the Tibetan refugees under the leadership of His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, were driven to seek political asylum in this country, resulting, as Rajivji has mentioned, in the now generally acclaimed Tibetan Refugee Rehabilitation Project with its economic, religious, cultural, and educational dimensions. And as we have seen, under the leadership of His Holiness, the Tibetans have developed a project of self-administration that has incrementally expanded over time into an elected body of representatives largely modeled on the Indian Parliament, with a chief executive and a cabinet of ministers handling different portfolios. This democratization process, I think, has further deepened the bonds between them and modern Indians. And we see now that about 3 generations of Tibetans have grown up in India. So that, to quote the late M.L. Sondhi, whom Rajiv was talking about, I quote, "The Indian joint commitment with the Tibetans is on a broader range of subjects than when they first took shelter on Indian soil. And these include human rights, international peace, Buddhist culture, Himalayan ecology, river waters, disarmament, and confidence building in Sino-Tibetan relations," unquote. Sorry, not unquote. These are not always expressed in formal institutions. They may have ups and downs depending on current developments, but they are very much issues of common concern, unquote. Inevitably now, on this commemorative occasion, the question arises, where do we go from here? From what we learn about recent events in Dharamsala, the item which Professor Sondhi has mentioned about confidence building in Sino-Tibetan relations seems to be the question whose time has come. Last year, TCA organized the 550 Forum, and as Dr. Lobsang Sangye described it later, its vision is premised on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's advice to, and he quotes His Holiness, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. This aims at fulfilling the aspirations of the Tibetans in Tibet, restoring freedom for Tibetans, and the return of His Holiness to his rightful home. At the same time, the 550 vision also embodies possibilities aiming to prepare and strategize to reinvigorate the Tibet movement for the next 50 years. So there's nothing very short-term about it. In any scenario, from the current vantage point, there are unique challenges arising out of China's policies, not only for the Tibetans, but also for India, and these call for a concerted response. So I'll say a little bit about soft power. China today has extended its territorial claims way beyond Tibet and Taiwan to large areas of the Pacific, and is seeking to extend its international clout even further with trade routes that cross Central Asia, the Indian Ocean, parts of Africa, etc., etc. She has evolved a new rationalization of this expansionism in terms of her own interpretation of, and perhaps even invention of, history. I will not touch on the strategic or hard power responses evolved by concerned countries, but I would like to dwell a little bit on the soft power that has been used by the West in trying to spread and popularize concepts of democracy, human rights, freedom, and religion within China. Now, we know that China has a big Christian population and is host to a vast number of Buddhists, and according to His Holiness, about 20 million of them are followers of Tibetan Buddhism. In the long term, this might indeed be a subversive body, or it may, at best, a conducive to a dialogue between the Tibetan exiles and China. However, the Chinese Communist Party has, as it were, learned lessons from the collapse of the Soviet Union and the subversive role that entities like Radio Free Europe, Voice of America, Index on Censorship, underground religious movements, Samizdat literature played in delegitimizing Communist Party rule. So they took a lesson from that. So they successfully black out most external soft power inputs through tight controls on communications and media. While they manage the internal situation through state persecution or institutional controls. This is not to say that soft power should be abandoned, even though it's becoming difficult, but that India and the exiled Tibetans have also to think of new tactics to deal with the Chinese. So there is this question of sharp power, which I would like to say a little bit about. Post-Tiananmen, sharp power as opposed to soft power. Post-Tiananmen, the Communist Party in China indoctrinated successive generations in a fierce, xenophobic, and at times revanchist nationalism, coupled with a successful mobilization of overseas Chinese. Several aspects of China's narrative and actions are outside the rationale of the international system as we know it, and initially give rise to confusion and surprise. Sorry?
Very fundamental points.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, that made my day. But now a discernible process of challenging the content and terminology of this Chinese self-presentation is emerging. As an example, I quote from Joseph Nye, the well-known political scientist. I'm sorry it's a longish quotation, but it's worth listening to. He says, Washington has been wrestling with a new term that describes an old threat. Sharp power, as coined by Christopher Walker and Jennifer Ludwig of the National Endowment for Democracy, refers to information warfare being waged by today's authoritarian powers, particularly China and Russia. Over the past decade, Beijing and Moscow have spent tens of billions of dollars to shape public perceptions and behavior around the world, using tools new and old that exploit the asymmetry of openness between their own restrictive systems and democratic societies. And the effects are global, but in the United States, concern has focused on Russian interference in the presidential election recent, and on Chinese efforts to control discussion on sensitive topics in American publications, movies, etc. But in their report, Walker and Ludwig argue that the expansion and refinement of Chinese and Russian sharp power should prompt policymakers not only in the United States but in all other democracies to rethink the tools they use to respond to this. They contrast sharp power, which pierces, penetrates, or perforates the political and information environments in the targeted country. They contrast that with soft power, which harnesses the allure of culture and values to enhance the country's strength. And democracies, they argue, must not just inoculate themselves against malign authoritarian influence, but also take a far more assertive posture on behalf of their own principles. Incidentally, without using the term sharp power, Professor Clive Hamilton of Australia's Charles Sturt University, in his book Silent Invasion, China's Influence in Australia, vividly describes the penetration of the Chinese worldview into Australian universities, into their media, aided by generous donations from the Chinese embassy and support from the Chinese Australians, who constitute about 5.6% of Australia's citizens, and who quite openly display loyalties to Canberra and to Beijing. Hamilton became a victim of China's sharp power himself when his regular publisher, Allen and Unwin, pulled out after initially backing a book project by him, and they said they had been threatened by retaliation from Beijing and from Chinese lobbies within Australia. So Hamilton highlights, when it comes to history, that this is quite interesting, certain historical observations made by President Hu Jintao during his 2003 address to the Australian Parliament. And I quote, "The Chinese people have all along cherished amicable feelings about the Australian people. Back in the 1940s, the expeditionary fleets of the Ming Dynasty reached Australian shores. For centuries, the Chinese sailed across vast seas and settled down in what they call the southern land, or today's Australia. They brought Chinese culture to this land, and they lived harmoniously with the local people, contributing their proud share to Australia's economy, society, and its thriving pluralistic culture," unquote. This theory has been put forward by a discredited British author, Gavin Menzies, who's quite famous. You'll find him on Wikipedia. And he claimed that a fleet led by Admiral Zhu Man visited all continents, including Greenland, Antarctica, America, before Columbus reached there, and also this stopover at New South Wales, which preceded that of Captain Cook. This may sound risible, but I think the Tibetans are aware from their own experience the deadly earnest behind such extraordinary Chinese claims. More recently, in the International Court of Justice, China junked the wealth of historical evidence and precedents in law to maintain that its claims in the South China Sea are largely based on a similar fantastical journey of one Admiral Zhe. Similarly, in April 2017, President Xi Jinping reportedly told President Donald Trump that Korea used to be a part of China. And as for Tibet, one may usefully remember the late Elliot Sperling, whom some of you must be knowing, who strongly contested the Chinese version of their past relations with Tibet. I give just one example. When the Chinese claimed that Tibet was under their rule during the Qing dynasty, Sperling points out that at that time, China herself was merely a part of the great Qing Empire, Manchu Qing Empire. Given the logic behind this kind of reasoning, China's reasoning, tomorrow India could as well lay claim to Myanmar on the grounds that Burma was once ruled by the British from India. So from Korea to Doklam to Australia, though not as yet as far as America or Greenland, China is directly or indirectly claiming territories as within its sphere of influence by employing very singular versions of history or inventing facts or what we might call fake history. But even otherwise, there is no logical or moral basis for the lessons that the Chinese draw from this version of history. The so-called century of humiliation by foreign powers cannot become a justification for current aggression. If that were acceptable in the conduct of international relations, then hardly any parts of the world would be without retaliatory conflicts or revanchist wars, neither in Europe, nor America, nor Asia. Whichever way, the democratic world and China are clearly engaged in a contest of ideas as well as in a contest over territory and power. India and the Tibetan exiles have chosen for themselves multi-party democracy and pluralism as against one-party and one-man rule, as in China. And this common bond is going to be important in facing the ongoing and perhaps more bitter contests in the future. And the challenge is not only to strategists and politicians, but also to academics and ordinary people. So in conclusion, I might suggest that it's important for Indian and Tibetan scholars, along with their international counterparts, to collaborate in understanding Chinese history and in reaffirming the international system. I end with a quote from American diplomat Robert Strauss Hoope, who observed, "A nation must think before it acts. So we trust the Tibetans will continue to partner India in thinking about common interests." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madhuriji. Dr. Kapilaji, what do I say? His Holiness the Dalai Lama refers to her whenever he sees her as Mataji. And, if she's in any corner of any room that His Holiness is in, he sort of walks through the room to where she is, gives her a big hug, and Mataji. And so deep is her commitment and her passion for the agendas of Tibet and her deep of devotion and affection to His Holiness that the rest of the narrative about her really must come second, at least in the consciousness of those of us who are associated with the Tibetans and observe her continuing dedication to this. But for the record, she is the preeminent scholar of classical Indian dance, art and architecture, a renowned art historian, has been a member of parliament and a senior bureaucrat, in which capacity she played a pivotal role in setting up the Central Tibetan Schools Administration of the Institute at Sarnath for Higher Tibetan Studies, and numerous initiatives that supported the preservation of Tibetan culture and Tibetan identity in India. She's the founding director of IGNCA. She's been a president of the India International Center and has written more books than I could spend the rest of the evening recounting. And she currently heads the Asia project of the India International Center. Kapilaji, would you prefer to speak there or here?
I can stand, but I can't speak.
What?
कुछ बोलने की जरूरत है कुछ जरूरत नहीं है
हमें सुनने की
Madhuri ji, Rajiv ji, and all these friends here. And of course, my most respected colleague I call him, Samdon Rinpoche. I think that as far as the subject is concerned, both Rinpoche ji and Madhuri ji has placed before you some very important and fundamental aspects of Tibet and also of India's engagement, I'm not so sure, disengagement. I belong to that historical period, and with what we call Tibet today and what we call India today. I am at a loss, terrible loss, to speak to you very objectively. And Samdon Rinpoche ji is witness to, now that he looks back, to his travails, and as I look back to some of my travails as a member of the Indian bureaucracy. So I'm going to be hard. And you will forgive me, because that's the only advantage that old age has. As you are traveling with one foot to your grave, you can speak the truth. And there's some very eminent people of the Foreign Service here and so on. I used to be in charge, and pardon me for taking liberties, but he just told me that I can't walk and I can't talk, so I can talk memories. So what happened, Samdon, you don't know this. You and I have worked for over 20 years. I used to be in charge of External Relations Division, or Bureau, which meant that naturally, as part of your duty, and there are very eminent people of the Foreign Service here, one had to travel abroad quite frequently. This was part of my job, and so naturally the bureaucracy was jealous. Said, "ये बाहर जाती है, रोज जाती है, और कभी यहाँ चली गई, कभी वहाँ चली गई, इसको ऐसी जगह देनी चाहिए कि ये हिंदुस्तान में रहे, और ये सब लोग हिंदी और संस्कृत और तिब्बतन ये सब करे." this is a very big message for us in our terms of our value systems. And since my old age gives me the liberty to say this, there was this because we still suffer from a kind of a complex. So we explain, I will not elaborate on what happened. I found myself in charge of a small unit, Tibetan refugees. So I said, all right, look at that. And what was a punishment as far as the bureaucracy and some political leadership. I see all this as my last farewell public speak. So this has a message in terms of our value systems at sometimes the political level and sometimes, naturally, the bureaucratic levels. So I found myself in charge of, ये सब जो संस्कृत और तिब्बतन और ये सब करेगा ये भाषा की रहती है. All right. I have to confess that while I'd done a certain amount of reading and knew the history of Tibet from sources, I was totally ignorant. जो लिखा जाता है, and of course, Rorek and all these arty business. So then I found myself in Dharamshala, in charge of Tibetan schools. And what was for the bureaucracy a punishment, for me it was manna from the heavens. Because this is where I met His Holiness. And ever since, as Rajivji knows and Samdon Rinpoche knows, I don't have to put in words the gifts that I have received, more, not I personally. The gifts that this country has received from the presence of, I don't call him a person, a soul, like His Holiness. And what? We dare call them refugees? Do we not know the history? Maharaji, you spoke at a very elevated level, and so did Rinpoche. I'm speaking deliberately at a down-to-earth level of the workings, and you have been part, not only part of it, you have been subject to, witness to the another type of a conflict or tension in this country. And I think that we have to be open enough to face this. Rinpoche has been the subject of this, and while in the Sarnath Institute, as I said, I'm old enough with 2 feet in the grave, so I can today mention this. I didn't even mention it to Samdang Rinpoche because I knew that he would be disturbed and to go out for a walk to Sadhana. And what did I confront? Rinpoche मैंने आपको बताया नहीं था क्योंकि आप मेरे साथ आते उनका कपिला जी आप ये सब कटु बातें हैं लेकिन बुढ़ापे में आदमी कह सकता कपिला जी आप तो हिंदू विश्वविद्यालय की पढ़ी हुई है ना मैंने कहा जी हाँ वहाँ पढ़ी हुई हूँ वहीं से मेरा डॉक्टरेट है क्या प्रॉब्लम है क्या समस्या होगी आप यहाँ और वो कहानी मैं आपको नहीं बताऊंगी कि उनका लैंड कैसे मिला और क्या क्या करना होगा तो आप यहाँ तिब्बत से संस्कृति की पताका करने आए हैं And this is physical. I have not said this even in my biography. Today, when everybody has accepted the great benediction of a presence like His Holiness, I dare take the courage to state this. Said, देखिए, आप जरा सावधान रह जाइए, हम आपकी खोपड़ी फोड़ देंगे। मैंने कहा कि मेरी खोपड़ी तो बनारसी में बोलती हूँ खोपड़ी तो फोड़ देंगे लेकिन उसके पश्चात क्या होगा और ये जो साधनास पे हम लोग सब हैं तो ये क्या मध्यकालीन हिंदू धर्म की देन है ये आप मुझे समझाइए तो कहने आप सावधान हो जाइए उन्होंने कहा सावधान क्या मैं यहाँ आई हूँ और वो मेरा किसान भाई है उससे मैंने ज़मीन ली है और यहाँ पर हमारे सामने से पूछे ये सब अभी तो सब लोग बात करते हैं जो सामदंगी को सहना पड़ा वो मैं जानती हूँ और इसलिए मैं सामदंगी को प्रणाम करती हूँ कि इस वातावरण में उन्होंने उस संस्था को कायम नहीं किया एंड आई बी रूड वेरी रूड टुडे कि जो लोग इनका इतना मेरे पास आके कहते थे जो टिबेटन है ना उसके साथ आप क्या करेंगे और वही तो क्या Brahman, this is part of our culture, we better face it. सामने के हाथ से खा ले उनका कि कपिला जी आप ये सब कर आए हैं उनका रुक जाइए मैं तो ऐसे सरकारी नौकर हूँ जो कहा जाता है वो मैं कर देती हूँ अब ये सब बातें इतने स्पष्ट रूप से मेरी हिम्मत क्यों हुई आज बात करने की आज तक तो मैंने मुँह नहीं खोला आज जाते जाते मुँह खोल रही हूँ क्योंकि हमें जो देखना है और जिस चीज़ को एक इसका बौद्धिक स्तर है और एक उसका स्तर जो कि माधवी जी ने इतनी सुंदरता से और इतनी गहराई से आपके सम्मुख रखा है उसका जो एक यथार्थ का जो मुख है और स्तर है जिसमें कि भारतीय संस्कृति में आज वो सहनशीलता नहीं रही है जिसमें उदारता यहाँ की उदारता जिसमें जो पार्लियामेंट में लिखा हुआ है कि विंग्स ऑफ आर कंट्रीज, लेकिन जब हम यथार्थ में और जब हम ये देखते हैं और हम लोगों में से जिन्होंने ये जूझा है, ये आज मैं वो सब बौद्धिक बातें, सिद्धांत की बातें नहीं करूँगी, क्योंकि वो परम पावन इस होलीनेस आपको धन्यवाद दे रहे हैं। आप उनको सच सच प्रणाम करें। प्रणाम करें केवल उनके व्यक्तित्व का नहीं, लेकिन जो विद्या, जो दृष्टि इस देश से जिसका पलायन हो गया था, वो वापस लाए और लाने में सफल भी हुए हैं। इस देश से जो एक जो हमारी धारा और परंपरा थी, वो क्षीण भी होती गई, सूखती भी गई, चाहे बौद्धिक स्तर पर उस पर काम हुआ और आप लोग सब राहुल सरकार के कार्य से सब परिचित होंगे। लेकिन जिस प्रकार से हिज होलीनेस की जो दृष्टि और जो उन्होंने अनेक स्तरों पर काम किया है, उन्होंने भारतीय संस्कृति की एक शाखा को फिर से स्थापित किया है। इस सभागार में मुझे भारतीय इतिहास के ऊपर अवलोकन नहीं करना है, लेकिन आप लोग ये जानते हैं, और विशेषकर भारतीय कुछ क्षेत्रों में ये जो हमारे टेंशन रहा, मैं नाम नहीं लूँगी अभी, और मैं इसलिए ये सब कह रही हूँ क्योंकि मैंने ये सब जूझा है। और उसका परिवर्तन देखा है कि किस प्रकार से बौद्धिक स्तर पर, सामाजिक स्तर पर इसमें हिज होलीनेस का जो योगदान क्या कहूँ, उनका यहाँ रहना ही जिन मूल्यों को उन्होंने स्थापित किया है, और मैं ये कहूँ कि इस देश में पुनः स्थापित किया है, जो ये धाराएं कुछ क्षीण हो रही थी। आज जो तिब्बतन समुदाय है हमको धन्यवाद दे रहे हैं, अनेक अनेक धन्यवाद, हम आपको धन्यवाद दें। आप क्या धन्यवाद देंगे? हमने तो आपको थोड़ी सी जमीन दे दी, धर्मशाला में बहुत बार गई हूँ आपके स्कूलों के साथ, लेकिन जो विद्या की शाखा है, जो मनन की शाखा है, जो चिंतन की शाखा है, इस देश में क्षीण हो गई थी। और आपको मालूम है, मैं आपके सामने क्या बोलूँ समदो जी, और आपका और मेरा तो बड़ा पुराना संबंध रहा है। उनको और वहाँ समदो रिंपोचे का जो कार्य रहा है सेंट्रल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ हायर तिब्बतन स्टडीज में, उसके लिए मैं उनको बधाई नहीं देना चाहती, मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि हमारी जो बाकी की यूनिवर्सिटीज है, उनको उस यूनिवर्सिटी में जो काम हुआ है उसके प्रति जागरूक होना चाहिए। I'll say a few words in English. because the intellectual traditions in India did get fragmented. And we talked of the East and the West, and we talked of Buddhism and Brahmanism and so on and so forth. But the discourse did not go into our fundamental texts. Fundamental texts, I would say, as a person brought up in the Banaras Hindu University, fundamental texts in terms of even what we would call Brahmanism is a closed category. And while we had some great scholars, and I named Rahul Sankatag and some others with whom I have had the opportunity to, this, and now there are 2 or 3 departments of Buddhist studies, but they're all mostly dealing with secondary materials and not with primary materials. And I'm not going to embarrass Shamdon Rinpoche. We've had a long association, and at one point he was everybody thinks everything is hunky-dory. Once he came to me as I was leaving, कभी मैं तो यार नहीं काम कर रहा हूँ, मैं तो जा रहा हूँ. मैंने कहा कहाँ जा रहे हैं, कहीं रहेंगे. और मैं ये सब कछु बात कहना चाहती हूँ. जो लोग, और मैं सुबह बाहर सैर करने, मैंने आपको ये सब बताया नहीं, मैंने कहा आपको बहुत दुखी होंगे. कपिला जी, आप BSU की पढ़ी हुई हैं, आपका बौद्ध धर्म की पताका चलाने आई है, हम आपका सिर फोड़ देंगे. मैंने कहा सिर फोड़ने से तो बौद्ध धर्म नहीं खत्म हो जाएगा, और तो एक बेचारी महिला का सिर फोड़ देंगे आप, तो क्या होगा. और उसके बाद वही पर्सन को पता है मंदिर है, मैं बाहर चली गई क्योंकि वो तो 10 बार तो बनारस का ये भी पक्ष, और उस पक्ष को मैं यहाँ क्यों मुखरित कर रही हूँ, क्योंकि ऐसे सर्कमस्टेंसेस में रिनपोचे जी ने वो संस्था खड़ी की है. और इनके सामने मैं इनकी तारीफ नहीं करती हूँ, इनसे खाली लड़ती रहती हूँ, लेकिन शामगुरु रिनपोचे ने जो कार्य वहाँ किया और आज वो चल रहा है, वो व्यक्तिगत नहीं होता है. अब वो भारतवर्ष की एक विद्या और एक मनन और चिंतन की जो शाखा है, उसको हिज होलीनेस और तिब्बतन, तो इसलिए सामने जी मैं हाथ जोड़ के कहती हूँ कि आप लोगों को ये नहीं करना चाहिए. आप लोगों को, पहले तो आप नहीं हैं, थैंक यू इंडिया नहीं करना चाहिए. India should get down on its bended knees and say thank you. Thank you for what? Thank you for bringing back the intellectual and the spiritual traditions of the culture of this country. Back. There are all these Christian stories about the prodigal son. We have to invert that and say that the intellectual traditions of this country, which were drying up, except for a few centers, you know all this backwards, forwards, it is the presence of not only His Holiness the person and what he has done in various spheres to establish another set of values, but in terms of the work that institutes like the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies have done to bring back primary materials. And I go a step further before you ask me to stop and finish on my harangue. This has to be now related to the Indian universities. The death of a rigorous department of the study of primary texts, not secondary texts, is acutely lacking, although the Tibetan Institute has done tremendous work and they are known all over the world, and now people are coming, and the most conservative of conservative people are coming to them. I think that there is need for an intellectual engagement with the intellectual traditions of Buddhism. You'll say, कभी जब आप बंद करो ना तो बड़ा अच्छा होगा। मैं बंद तो कर देती हूँ, लेकिन ये दरवाज़ा अगर हम ये नहीं सोचते हैं कि वो जो थैंक यू कर रहे हैं, थैंक यू थैंक यू थैंक यू, आपको हम थैंक करना चाहते हैं कि ये जो है इसका कनेक्शन, इसका संबंध हमारी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के साथ और वो जो 5-6 हमारे बुद्धिस्ट स्कॉलर्स हैं वहाँ तक सीमित नहीं रहना चाहिए। मैंने अभी वो पुस्तक पढ़ी है जिसमें माधवी जी का बहुत ही अच्छा लेख है ऑन तिब्बत, लेकिन वो सब लोग बहुत अच्छे हैं और उस सब का मैं अध्ययन करती हूँ, लेकिन generally, and I'll go to English, generally we have very few departments of Buddhist studies. We have very few work, and he will bear me out and hopefully criticize me, that who have done primary work on the primary text, and that institute, he is too modest to say anything, has published, कितने हैं मेरा ख्याल 80 primary texts. So what are we doing about that? It's not enough for us, and I speak as a rather irresponsible trustee of the IIC, to sit here and have all this. We have to see that the knowledge and both the epistemology of the Buddhist philosophic systems is not restricted to 10 or 20 people in India. Have I spoken too much? Yeah? So I'll stop. Thank you. I have to thank Rajiv, but that I forgot. I did forget. It was too much inside me. Sorry, it has to be said something. What is the point of getting all this? Ask him what he means. Ask him what he means. And sort of literally weeping. I face on it.
Kapalaji is the toughest act in the universe to follow. And so I shall be a coward and leave that to my friend Lobsang Sangye. Dr. Lobsang Sangye is president of the Central Tibetan Administration. He was born in India in 1968, and it's significant. He studied at the Central School for Tibetans in India, the kind of institution that Kapilaji helped establish, and was elected the youngest executive member of the Tibetan Youth Congress. The seeds were sown young. He got a Fulbright scholarship in 1995 that took him to Harvard University, where he was the first Tibetan to receive the SJD degree from Harvard Law School for his PhD dissertation, Democracy in Distress, Is Exile Polity a Remedy? A case study of the Tibetan government in exile. He became a research fellow, a senior research fellow at Harvard University, and is an expert on international human rights law, democratic constitutionalism, and conflict resolution. He has addressed, as you would expect, a man of his experience and stature and eloquence, which he will be on display at seminars around the world. He organized numerous conferences, and very importantly, while at Harvard, amongst Chinese, Tibetans, Indians, and Western scholars on China and Tibet, including 2 unprecedented meetings between His Holiness and Chinese scholars at Harvard. In 2011, he was elected to the post of Sikong, the democratically elected leader of the Tibetan people by the Tibetans in exile, taking over and inheriting the mantle of the political leadership of the Tibetan people that was held for centuries by the Dalai Lamas of Tibet, punctuated by the rule of the regents. In May 2016, he was re-elected as Sikong, and from then on described and termed the president of the Central Tibetan Administration. And as Madhurji mentioned, he unveiled a 550 vision on shaping Tibet's political future. He was awarded in 2016 the National Endowment for Democracy's medal, honoring the democratic institutions of the Central Tibetan Administration, their presidential medal. He's got the gold medal from Trinity College, Dublin. He has written widely in op-eds in the Washington Post, The Guardian, and numerous other publications, and continues to travel very extensively. Like His Holiness has often said, and he said that now the blood going through my brains has been fed on Indian dal and chawal, so Lobsang Sangla is also a product of the Indian educational system. His roots have been in India, and today he steers the Tibetan administration into a very critical phase. When we talk about current bonds, you will have followed in the press the challenges of what Kapilaji described, and I mentioned at the beginning that what should really have been a thank you Tibet event, and not just a thank you India event. And he is the future face of not just the Tibetans in exile who have elected him, but of the Tibetan agendas, the aspirations of the people inside Tibet, for whose cause and whose rights to preserve and celebrate their identities and their heritage the entire Tibetan movement is about. So I invite Dr. Lobsang Sangye.
Thank you, Rajibji, for the kind introduction. I think that's all you're going to get from me, because as Rinpoche started speaking, I was going through a bit of a heart attack, because I was understanding barely 10% of what he was speaking is Shuddh Hindi and Sanskrit. Then I thought maybe I can pretend to translate and say something and get away with my speech. Then Rajiv did the translation. Then I thought maybe I'll speak something about the current issue. Then Madhuriji came and stole that topic as well. Then I thought maybe I'll go to China, because Delhi is quite far away from Beijing. Maybe I can get away. Then suddenly Sham Saranji entered the room. I said, I can't escape that also. Then I thought maybe I'll give some geopolitics, security perspective, and perhaps I can pass my 12 minutes and all the generals and colonels and security experts sitting here. So I was sweating. Then maybe I thought I'd give a personal account of something I should make up. Then Kapila came and just gave inside, outside, emotional, personal perspective of whole Tibet, His Holiness Dalai Lama. I'm left with nothing to say, So that's the disadvantage. Actually, deliberately I requested Rajiv, because my name is listed first. I kind of pushed him and said, put me at the end so that I can say something. But then now I regret the fact that I should have been the first one to speak. So the standard would be so low that it would have gone up. Now I'm a bit of a panic mode. And Rajiv, by mistake, you said I'm the future of Tibet. If I am the future face of Tibet, then I think we are doomed. So we have to solve the issue of Tibet next 5 years, otherwise 50 might be in trouble. But then I just thought, perhaps looking at your faces, maybe I thought, some of you want to know about India Tibet 101. They give you 10 out of 10. So I'll just come down to 101 and try to make the case, because I overheard, explaining to Sham Saranji, he said make in India and made in India. So I will present the case and say Tibet issue is made in India. The original Tibet as a country, as a religion, as democracy is made in India. Now, if you want Make in India, Modi ji's Make in India to succeed, you better support us. Because I will, first, number one, geographically, Tibet was a lowland, had agriculture, forests, animals, all that. India came millions of years ago from somewhere from Africa and came and pushed Tibet up and up and up. We became mountains. We became roof of the world because of India. Geographically, we are called roof of the world because you guys came from other continent and just pushed us up. So the country, the Tibet, the roof of the world, is made by India. Number two, the first king of Tibet, we were told his name is Nyati Tsempo. Means he was carried by 12 people, Nyati Tsempo, king. Because he was wearing something silky clothes like, young, handsome, dashing guy, and he was asked by Tibetans, where do you come from? He pointed to the sky. So, he's a God-sent king for Tibet. Let's carry him and make him our king. Then now the interpretation goes, during the Mahabharata, great Mahabharata, one prince just traveled and lost and came to Tibet and he became the first king. So our king is also from India, first king. Now because we were pushed up, we started getting so many snow and glaciers, rivers started flowing down, and the Indus River, the cradle of Indian civilization, comes from Tibet. Satluj River, Brahmaputra also. See, you made us up high, we got snow, glaciers, and rivers, we're sharing rivers. Now if you want your water to continue, you better save Tibet. Now third, and Rinpoche explained it so elaborately, substantively, Buddhism came from India. We had our own shamanistic religion called Bön, by the way. It's not like we didn't have religion, we had our own. We were doing okay. Suddenly these Indian-born king descendants thought, unke gene mein tha, main Bharat se dharam le leta hu. Now we understand why we got Buddhism from India, not from China. Genetically, he was the same descendant of the same king. He said, I have to go to India. Then he started sending translators, Lotsavas. If 10 came to India, 7 or 8, 9 lost their lives on the way. We paid huge price to get Buddhism from India. It's not an easy travel. 1 or 2 survived and they came, learned Sanskrit, and translated in Tibetan all the Buddhist texts. Then we took it to Tibet. Now there are so many Buddhist countries in the world, 14 Buddhist countries, 52 following Buddhism, with large majority. As Rinpoche said, even in India included, China, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, all Buddhist countries, none of them have text of what the Buddha said. At most, one country has 24 volumes. 5, 10 volumes at all. It's only in Tibetan language. We have 108 volumes of what actually Buddha said. 220 volumes of what his disciples said. So if you truly want to understand what Buddha said, hey, Buddha got enlightened in India, okay? You Indians should feel quite close to Buddha. If you want to know what he said, what he taught, it's only in Tibetan language, not in Hindi, not in Chinese, not in Thai, not in Cambodia. So do you want to preserve your ancient wisdom? What Buddha said, because India always take ownership. Buddha got enlightened in Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, all the places. But if you look at the road condition, there's not that much, contribution. But at least preserve the wisdom. It's only in Tibetan language. So it's made in India, hey? So, number 5. Why we lost country also partly, maybe थोड़ा सा India का blame भी होना चाहिए. Because during British India time, this young colonel, young husband, thought he will make an expedition to Tibet. He took his army, slaughtered us, went all the way to Lhasa. Chinese got paranoid. There was a great game was going on between, Russia, China, and British India. Chinese sent his army, 1907-8. The 13th Dalai Lama had to flee. He came to India, in Kalimpong. Finally, British India and China and Tibet said, let's have an agreement on this issue. It's called Simla Agreement. There's a Simla Agreement between India and Pakistan, but this is on Pakistan, but this is on Tibet. Simla Agreement. ठीक है? 1914, and Simla Agreement was signed. On the sideline, they also had one border agreement called McMahon Line, because British India was represented by Sir McMahon. Now, if you want your border to be McMahon Line, that is the slogan, McMahon Line को protect करो, ये हमारा सीमाना है, हम लोग ने sign किया है. Yeah, it was Tibetan Prime Minister, Lungchen Chatra, who signed that. And on the sideline, there was another trade agreement. That is the problem, called trade agreement, essentially, between Tibet and British India. So every 10 years, it was renewed. 1914, 24, 34, 44. It was renewed between Tibet and India. In 1954, after the independence of India, Pandit Nehru and Indian government thought, now we'll renew it with China. And Indian delegation went, after a couple of months, they came back, say, oh, we got a very good agreement called Panchshil. But if you look at the Panchshil agreement, if you look at the body of the agreement, it's only still a trade agreement between Tibet and India. But in the preamble, 5 points were listed, right? Now, India wanted the agreement to last for 25 years, according to some sources. China said, no, 5 saal. In the end, they agreed 8 saal. Now, 1954, 5 saal के बाद क्या हुआ? 1959, Tibet was occupied by China. 8 साल के बाद क्या हुआ? 1962 war. सब वहीं से हुआ. British India, Young Husband Expedition, Simla Agreement, and Panchshil Agreement. All these seeds were planted already there. So when Chinese army came to Tibet, सब कुछ लिखा चुका था. See, so partly we are to be blamed. Partly आपका भी थोड़ा blame है इसमें. So we have to correct the history. Why I say this is because if you look at the discourse in the Indian Parliament at that time, Professor Sondiji has listed. Pandit Nehru said, what Pandit Nehruji said at that time, what Balabhai Patelji said at that time, what Mukhopadhyay ji, Jayaprakash Narayan ji, Ram Manohar Lohia ji, all the great Indian leaders at that time in the Parliament, they said, जो अभी हो रहा है तिब्बत का कब्जा, it will come to us soon. Be aware. And Professor Sondiji wrote thereafter many articles. Many people saw China has come, for the first time, China has come to the border of India. This is not a good thing. No one listened. Now recently Doklam happened. Oh, yeah, aa gaya hai. Everybody is interested. But Doklam सिर्फ नहीं, श्रीलंका में है, पाकिस्तान में है, Maldives में आया हुआ है, नेपाल में आ चुका है. Nepal is the only other Hindu country in the whole world is more under Chinese influence than Indian influence. Bhutan को भी pressure आ रहा है. क्यों? Tibet was lost. then Chinese army is next door. Now all this in this whole subcontinent, so we are sharing the problem also. So hence we are together in this. So truly is made in India. Now, what has happened? We came to India as an exile. Under the leadership of His Holiness Dalai Lama, we established Central Tibet administration. Guru to Bharat hai, hum to chela hai. We took the philosophy of Bharat and we practiced the philosophy and values of Bharat. That's what Kapila ji was saying. Philosophy and values, I said. We didn't copy the practice of Indian democracy. Hamara parliament utna rakas nahi hai. And also, honesty also. In the Tibetan settlements, this winter is just over. If you see Lal Killa or you go to any of the roadside in any of the major towns and cities of India, Tibetans are selling sweaters on the roadside for 40 years. Now I went to Ludhiana. We have so many lalas there selling sweaters, wholesalers. So I said, what is the relationship? It's based on trust. Kyun? Lalas, when Tibetans go buy sweaters, they give 20,000 rupees, they get 80,000 rupees loan of sweaters. And how it's traded? Tibetans go, and Lalas, I told them, wo parchi dikhana, mashhoor parchi, they have parchi. They took out a notebook, they asked you, what's your name? Mr. Saran, kahan rehte ho? Co-legal settlement? Camp number 4, house number 3. That's all. एक पेपर में नाम लिखा हुआ है, घर का number and settlement, 80,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupees loan. No collateral. Lawyer का तो काम ही नहीं वहाँ पे. पक्का. For 40 years. And I asked them, कैसे? ईमानदारी है तिब्बती लोग. That's why I said we follow the philosophy and values of ईमानदारी, Indian philosophy of values. And 40 years, they said, not only on time, before time they return the money. And we just initiated our own, CTA initiated this credit. 1,000 families, we give 1 lakh rupees. 6 months, 3% interest rate. And we say return the money in April. We initiated this in June. What happened? By February, 100% return. Or there's a big case in Karnataka, mein, a journalist from Karnataka. All the Tibetan settlements, वहाँ पे, the electricity board wanted to give Tibetans 24 hours electricity. All the neighboring villages started complaining, क्यों? ये तो बाहर से आए, इनको 24 hours दे रहे हैं, हम तो यहीं का है, क्यों हमें नहीं दे रहा है? क्योंकि ये लोग हर महीने 100% बिल जमा करते हैं, आप 50% जमा करते हो, हमें इनसे प्रॉफिट मिलते हैं, आपसे नहीं इसलिए दे रहा हूँ. ईमानदारी. Thank you. Or literacy rate. See, our schools are subsidized by the Indian government. I was educated as I was born, brought up in Tibetan refugee camp. CTA literacy rate below the age of 60, because we've been here for 60 years, is 94%. It's the highest literacy rate in the whole of subcontinent. Q, we took the money and we run it so frugally. हम लोग इतना कंजूस है, by the way, thanks to Samdhu Rinpoche also. Frugality. इतना rules, regulation लिखा हुआ है. I have a name of a president. मेरे को first thing when I have to worry when I board the plane is not my handbag but my boarding card. If I don't show my boarding card, I don't get refund. मैंने कहा न्यूयॉर्क तक गया हूँ, वापस तो न्यूयॉर्क से पैदा थोड़ी आया, प्लेन से आया, नहीं बोर्डिंग कार्ड लाऊं, नहीं तो पैसा नहीं मिला. Now, if I don't get $1,000, $2,000 refund, मेरा तनख्वाह है $400 a month. ये तो postman से भी कम है. Now, if you're looking for cheapest president, my predecessor Samdhu Rinpoche is here, then follow that I'm also here. We run very frugally. Why? Because we take money and we spend it on projects. Imandari se. So as Rajiv ji said, I spent 16 years in America. वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा हार्वर्ड का डिग्री भी था, काम वाम कॉर्पोरेट लॉ में मिलता था. सब छोड़ के यहाँ आए क्योंकि the value, the Indian values, ईमानदारी जो है, लेवल ऑफ लव जो है, जो हमें सिखाया, हम इम्प्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि परंपरा में दलाई लामा जी का विजन है, उनका एडवाइस है. दिस इज हाउ वी फंक्शन. और हमारा डेमोक्रेसी है इज ऑल्सो फ्रॉम इंडिया, एंड द अहिंसा दैट वी फॉलो इज ऑल्सो फ्रॉम इंडिया. तो इफ यू आर लुकिंग फॉर कंप्लीट मेक इन इंडिया, हमारा कंट्री है, हमारा माउंटेन्स है, हमारा रिवर्स है, हमारा कल्चर है, हमारा रिलीजन है, हमारा डेमोक्रेसी है, सब कुछ यहीं से तो है. Now the challenge we are facing is also common. Xi Jinping in his party congress said socialism with Chinese characteristic in new era. At least Deng Xiaoping had the decency to say, in 50 years there will be democracy in China. कहाँ तो था? Wen Jiabao कहा democracy is inevitable. Xi Jinping said नहीं. One party rule, socialism with Chinese characteristic. In new era हम आ रहा हूँ. This is our ideology. One belt, one road is our road. We are coming. And they are already coming in India, we know that. अंदर भी है, बाहर भी है, surrounding all the neighboring countries, they are coming. They came because of Tibet. China prevented barbarians from entering China with Great Wall. आपका Great Wall हम थे, Himalayan mountains, Tibet plateau. Great Wall छोड़ दिया, आ गया. तो हमें मजबूत बनाना है वो Great Wall को. Roof of the wall को मजबूत बनाना है. इसलिए हम लोग सब साथ में मार्च करके, so what is ours has to be ours. If you succeed, you succeed. If you succeed, we succeed. इसलिए this is the reality. Since, the Mao Zedong and Chinese leaders said, Tibet is the palm, let's occupy, then let's go after 5 fingers. Sikkim, Ladakh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Arunachal. Doklam is कारण से हुआ. And there's some people who say, नहीं, Dalai Lama went to Arunachal इसलिए. ऐसा नहीं है. इससे बड़ा है. If His Holiness went to Arunachal, that's because Doklam happened, then why China is doing in Maldives? हमें तो लेना ही देना नहीं है. What are they doing in Sri Lanka? मेरे से मतलब ही नहीं है. Bangladesh, That's true. All the 14 countries say the same thing. Tibet, because of Tibet, they are here. So that's why we all have to work together. Because the rise of China is a fundamental challenge to the very values and the principles and the philosophy that India has. वही है. One-party system, communism, expansionist design. ये है. So hence, it's a fundamental challenge for our civilization, for our values, for our philosophy. इसलिए, we have to succeed. Tibetans have to succeed. If we don't succeed, we fail together. इसलिए, if we succeed, we take the credit together. If we fail, I think you'll be blamed more than us. So, with that note, this is 101, Tibet, China, ancient ties and current bonds. So I hope I can say I didn't bore you at least, They gave you wisdom. They gave you knowledge. I think spiritual path as well. So what I did was, trying to freshen up the issue a little bit and make it a little lively. So at least you got 101 on Tibet, India, ancient ties and current bonds. So our relationship goes back hundreds of millions of years until now. So as someone who's standing here, is born and brought up here, educated here, learned a lot, taught and told by our Indian teachers and staff, तुम्हें बनना है. You have to serve the community, you have to serve the cause. They advised us and we followed. And under the leadership of His Holiness Dalai Lama, we are doing relatively okay. In the current context, we're still standing. So 60 years of Thank You India event is to say thank you. Even Kapila ji said we don't have to say thank you to India. You have to. Why? Because again, this is the value you taught us. That you have to thank your host. Even to your family members, you should say thank you from time to time. For India, no country has done more for Tibet and Tibetan people than this great country. No people have done more for the Tibetan people. So we always say, why we are celebrating, holding this event is, we always write in our speeches, we want to thank the government and people of India. I said, it's only words. We say it in speeches, it's only words. We have to show it. And we are showing it here at IIC because it's a celebration of what we have preserved. And it's ancient civilization almost destroyed. It's preserved and promoted. An ancient culture, ancient identity, a values philosophy that makes the world rich. That's what India is about. So I want to conclude by saying, Hardik Shukriya, Jai Bharat, Jai Tibet, Jai Jagat. Thank you.
You know, whenever His Holiness travels anywhere in the world, he always celebrates and acknowledges India. And I understand that when he met President Obama, he had an hour-long meeting in which he spent 40 minutes briefing him about Indian values. I think Lobsang La has a huge challenge in front of him. I don't know if he's eligible to become an Indian citizen in that little window that has been opened. Because if he does, you know, we have an election coming up, 2019. And we are looking for a young politician who draws inspiration from Indian values and has a sense of humor. And so that may be a sacrifice you have to make for the Tibetan agenda. Well, just to reinforce what my sort of, I dare not call them colleagues, sort of my people I've had the great privilege of sharing the stage with. Thank you, Tibet. Thank you, Tibetans. Thank you, above all, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for who he is and embodying the highest human aspiration that any human being can have. That he has been in our midst is really, and at this time when, you know, I often think of what it must feel like to have been around when Jesus of Nazareth was alive or Gandhiji was alive, and to have shared the same physical space and the impact of who they were as human beings and the philosophies they embodied. So it has been a privilege of sharing the stage with. Thank you, Tibet. Thank you, Tibetans. Thank you, above all, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for who he is and embodying the highest human aspiration that any human being can have. That he has been in our midst is really, and at this time when, you know, I often think of what it must feel like to have been around when Jesus of Nazareth was alive or Gandhiji was alive, and to have shared the same physical space and the impact of who they were as human beings and the philosophies they embodied. So it has been a great privilege and a great blessing to be alive in India at the time when, and we tend to forget that the Tibetans are a very, very small community in exile, about 130, 140,000, of which there are only about 70, 80,000 now in India. And the impact of their presence on our lives is a celebration. So as the two representatives, as the two arms, His Holiness has described them, the political and his personal, Samdang Rinpoche and Lobsang Sangye, on behalf of all the Tibetan community, please accept our deep gratitude and appreciation. Is that time for a tea break? There's a presentation of mementos. Will I get one? Yeah.
Thank
Thank you very much, Rajiv ji. Thank you very much, all the speakers. Before we conclude, I'd like to invite Mr. Sonam Nobudakpur, the International Relations Secretary at the Department of Information and International Relations, to present mementos to all our honorable speakers and to moderator as well. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll now have high tea served at the lobby area.